The Lich Keeper's Ledger. I always knew I was different. As a child, I was fascinated by the dusty corners of old libraries, the whispers of forgotten archives, and the secrets they held. My family, however, saw my obsession as a disease. When I first uncovered the truth about the town archivist, how he'd plundered graves and sold the bones of the dead to collectors, they called me paranoid, delusional. "You'll disgrace us," my father said, his voice like gravel, laced with contempt. "You're just a child playing with ghosts." Those words echoed in my mind. Years passed, and the world began to notice. The whispers of my name spread like wildfire through the academic circles. My findings deemed revolutionary, yet laced with dread. I was no longer the family disgrace. I was a harbinger, a warning to those who dared to mock the unknown. But the deeper I delved, the more I lost my grip on reality. The records I unearthed spoke of something darker, something that watched from the void, hungry and patient. The day I returned home, the air crackled with tension. My family's house loomed like a prison, the familiar contours now twisted by time and resentment. I could almost hear their laughter, echoing from years past, mocking me for what I had become. But I was no longer the frightened child they had known. I was a vessel of knowledge, a keeper of secrets that would haunt them forever. As I entered the house, the familiar scent of lavender and old wood enveloped me. My mother stood in the kitchen, her back turned. She had aged, her hair now streaked with silver, but the tension in her shoulders was unmistakable. My father, ever the stoic, sat in the living room, his eyes narrowing as I stepped into view. I could feel the weight of their disbelief, the sharp edges of their derision cutting through the air. "Look who's back," my father sneered, the usual disdain dripping from his lips. "The ghost hunter returns. What's next, a séance in the attic?" I felt the familiar sting of their words. But this time it was different. I had something they didn't, a knowledge of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of our world. "I've come to show you something," I said, my voice steady, though my heart raced. They exchanged glances, their skepticism palpable. "Show us what?" my mother asked, her tone laced with mockery. "Another ghost story?" "No," I replied, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. "The truth." I led them to the basement, where I had set up my cryptomantic tools. The air grew colder as we descended, shadows stretching and contorting around us. I pulled out the ledger, its pages yellowed and brittle, filled with the names of the dead and the amounts that had been paid for their silence. These records are linked to our town's history, its wealth built on the backs of the forgotten. My family listened, their expressions shifting from ridicule to unease as I recounted the tales of those who had perished under mysterious circumstances, their deaths often tied to wealth and power. But it was when I began to reveal the names of our own ancestors, those who had profited from the graves of the lost, that their disbelief began to crack. "Stop," my father barked, his voice rising. "You're scaring your mother." "No," I insisted, the urgency in my voice rising. "You need to understand what we've become, what we've always been." Just then, the temperature plummeted. A draft swept through the basement, extinguishing the flickering candlelight. My mother gasped, and I felt a presence behind me, an oppressive weight, a dark shadow that loomed just beyond the flicker of the dying flames. "Is this what you wanted?" I shouted into the void. "Is this the truth you've kept hidden?" Then, in the darkness, I heard it, a whisper that curled around my spine like a serpent. "You should have listened." My family froze, their faces pale. Eyes wide with terror. They could see it now, the dark tendrils of the past reaching out to claim them, the shadows of ancestors long forgotten creeping from the corners of the room. The ledger began to pulse with an unnatural light, illuminating the faces of the damned, the ones who had been silenced and forgotten. "Mom! Dad!" I cried, but my voice was drowned out by the cacophony of whispers that filled the room. The shadows twisted and writhed, revealing glimpses of the horrors I had unearthed. My family stumbled backward, their laughter replaced by screams as they faced the consequences of their disbelief. As the darkness enveloped them, I felt a chilling call wash over me. They had mocked me, ridiculed my passion, but now they saw the terror I had faced and survived. They were witnessing the weight of the knowledge I carried, the ledger of the Lich Keeper. The shadows receded, leaving my family trembling, their laughter forever silenced. I stood there, a keeper of secrets, a harbinger of truth, and in that moment I realized my purpose was not just to expose the darkness, but to survive it. When the light returned, the basement was empty, save for me and the ledger, my only companion. I left the house, the weight of their disbelief still clinging to the air like smoke. I had returned home, not as the disgrace they had made me, but as a guardian of the truth, a warning for those who dared to mock the unknown. As I walked away, I felt the shadows follow, a chilling reminder of what I had become and the cost of their ignorance. The world would know my name, but the echoes of their laughter would haunt me forever. I was no longer just an archivist. I was a keeper of dark knowledge, and the ledger was my crown.